Where previously you had to have an input and an output, kind of a handshake between those machines to say, I'm ready, I'm running, I'm not running, I'm not ready. So with the Internet of Things, you can plug these machines together and they begin to recognize each other, and with very little programming you can set them up to run well together. The second part is that each of those machines are generating tremendous amounts of data. Whether somebody's capturing it or not, doesn't matter, they're generating data. So now you can begin to capture that data, scrape it off, and analyze it for trends. Trend might be an increase in electrical usage in a drive motor, which is indicative of a future failure. It might mean not the motor's going bad, it might mean that something else in the drive is going bad. So you got a higher load on that motor, thus higher electrical use. How you pull that out is where we come in by putting in a software layer that's above that collects it all, puts it in a repository in an organized manner, so you can then run queries and begin to look for the anomalies within your system. Additionally, you can use it to look for overall throughput of a line. How efficient am I running today versus my standard? So it allows you to sit remotely, whether it be in a corporate office, remote from the plant, or simply in the plant office or in the maintenance office, and see trend analysis on your plant in real time, where you have the ability then to change production requirements for the day, your production plan for the day if you need to.
There's certain security standards that you want to make sure it's following. So Predix the Cloud that I mentioned, our platform for IIoT, follows all those standards to make sure it's secure and you know, there won't be any data leaks or anything like that. So there's definitely some standards that you want to make sure that your cloud provider has.
What have you heard, like real life examples of people saying, I want to get into this, I really want to be able to collect the data, I want to be able to, you know,
yeah,
but I'm afraid of...
Yeah, especially when you talk about cloud, that's the #1 concern. So I was a analyst at Aberdeen Group before I started at GE, and we'd do surveys all the time. That we'd always ask, what's your #1 roadblock or hesitance to move to the cloud? And it's always security. It was like 75% of respondents said it was their top issue. So that's the biggest thing when moving to the cloud, and moving towards the industrial Internet of Things and an open connected factory. You got to make sure it's secure. And when you hear things repeatedly going on in the industrial environment around security, I mean, first there was Stuxnet, which was a big thing. It definitely puts fear into a lot of these manufacturers.
You know what the biggest hurdle for these companies actually is? It's their own IT departments, their own infrastructure, it's their privacy and data security concerns. You know, a Cargill doesn't want that their scales or their slicers are connected to the internet, and that data is feeding somewhere, because they may fear that somehow a competitor would detect that there's a machine down, now the company or plant is in trouble, I don't know what. They make these concerns up. If you eventually talk to them about, I had yesterday here a conversation about cloud-based business information with a customer, and then you have, and I said you can put it on premise, cost you like $50,000 more. Oh no, oh, okay. $50,000, okay, I give up some of my privacy, right? So this is a balance. When we actually go today to Amazon.com, we give some privacy up for, you know, usability, for, and that's the same thing here. I mean, you face a reality, an economic balance where you need to consider giving up of some of that to harvest a greater value.
I mean, one incident can shut down a whole plant. If you read up on Stuxnet, not only did it ruin the quality of the nuclear material that they were doing, but it systematically destroyed the assets that they had in place, set them back years.
One processor said to me, and maybe it was just sort of an off-the-cuff example, but he said, you know, I don't want a competitor of mine to just capture that data. Is that possible? I mean, I don't know
It's certainly possible, and this is another difference between IT OT. IT is about the actual data that you're collecting, your product data, stuff like that. The OT side is protecting the processes themselves and the physical assets. So there's some differences between the two, but it's definitely a possibility for competitors or non-competitors, so just malicious attacks, to get to your data.
The data itself is available to the operator on the screen, so there's nothing proprietary about the data. You really just have to get it packaged in a way where it's now separate from the algorithm that created it and is using it. I think it is going to take a push from the industry back to the suppliers to say, look guys, we're only working with systems that are able to communicate now. I say that not because of anything that's going on in any one of the companies or anything that I've heard, but because we've seen analogous things go on in other industries before, and that's always been what it's taken. If you take the example I used earlier, because it comes to me being an engineer, from the engineering world, you had the people at AutoCAD created one of the first CAD systems, and then you had companies like SolidWorks come in. At the time you had MathCAD, all these CAD, and they had the same problem. They couldn't share drawings because everybody had their proprietary digital framework behind it that was creating the drawing. And at a certain moment, the end users, the engineering houses said, look, we're only going to work in a platform if I can ship that drawing out to a customer and know, even if he doesn't have the same software that I have, that he can look at my file. And then because of that, we came up with things like drawing exchange formats, DXF files, and that's what pushed the industry to all create the functionality to be able to share the end result without sharing the code that created it. And that's the same push that we need.